Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marginal Support, where support is anything but marginal. I am your host, Andre Lindy, and I'm thrilled to have someone who actually had me on their podcast. They actually planted the seed for me to do my own podcast. So it's my honor and pleasure to have Thibaut as my guest today. Um, Thanks for coming on. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me. It's always nice to talk again and to be this time on the other side of the mic. Yeah, so hi everyone. If you don't know me, Thibaut, I'm French, 34 years old. I've been in customer support for the past 10 years now. Started my career as an agent. I was working at Google in 2015. Did basically about 2 years and a half of agent work before becoming team lead. I've done quality, I've done training, I've done a lot of things. Then I went more into the startup environment where I became head of CX and things like this. And most recently, I've launched my own company as a founder, which is another type of beast to handle, but it's still in the world of customer support. And that's what I spend most of my day doing right now. So yeah, just to give a really eye overview of where I'm coming from and what I'm doing right now.
That's great. I mean, it gives, I think, people a lot of context because it seems like you have tons of experience. You've been on the front lines, you've been a manager, and now you're a founder. What traits from being a frontline person and a manager have you tried to pull over into being a founder of a company of your own?
Um, the first one that comes is always adaptability. When I was an agent, it was always back then we didn't have AI and a lot of things. We already had macros and things like this. But I remember that what I liked the most about my job was actually making the research to find the right answer by myself. Maybe it was not always the most efficient because most likely someone next to me or maybe an escalation could have provided the information. But whenever it was the first time I saw something new or for the first time, I was really looking to learn and to find the information by myself. So, and that led me to being always adapting to the new situation and finding the right kind of knowledge or information where it was technically. And I think that's even more needed in my current situation with being a co-founder. I do basically everything that usually you would hire people to do. I do, of course, the sales part. I do the product part. I do operational stuff. I do tax related things, contracts. Yeah, you do everything. So every day you have to learn something new or to adapt or to make sure that you make it work basically. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So so I think adaptability is the main one, and I guess it's also my personality, but I like it. I like the challenge of okay, I have a challenge in front of me. What how can I solve it? Or what are the workarounds that I can find to make it work, even though it's not perfect. Um, so I think that's the main one. That's that's really the key one that I'm seeing myself using every day. Of course, there are more, but that's the one that is most important, I think.
I think as someone who's also been in support quite a while, we talked about that on your podcast. I think adaptability is a skill that people that are good in support, you can learn it, but I think it's something that kind of comes natural to some people that are just kind of fit for support. We have to be very mercurial in some ways. We have to know when to jump from one thing to another. We need to know how to prioritize. Um, for you, what do you think has been the hardest part though in being a founder? Because when you're an agent, I go in, I take tickets, that's my job. When you're a manager, you manage your people, but then you don't have to do the other things. What has been some of the biggest challenges for you now being a founder of your own company?
It's just the reality that some of the stuff that I don't know or I didn't have experience before is taking you have a wide variety of complexity in everything that we have to do. So some things are super easy to pick up. Like the same with tickets. I had some tickets that maybe it was the first time I handled back then, but it was super easy. And once you understand the thing, you know, yeah, you are on top of it. But there are things you need to do them 10, 20, 50 times before understanding really how it works and how it can impact different customer differently. And I'm just thinking about the fact that right now we are still early, and of course, the idea is to onboard more customers and so on. But every new customer that you onboard, you see potentially our tool, because we use generative AI, reacting a bit differently, or it's not exactly the same way that you're gonna set it up and so on. And this is still something that we are learning every day, I would say. And as I was saying, some of this thing is easy to pick up on, and some of those are taking weeks or months of working every day, trying slightly different variation and so on to understand, okay, with this kind of input, this is the kind of great output I can get. And you have to, I think we learn patience also when we are in customer support. But here you are basically patience is even more important right now, like for me, because like back then I'm a patient person. I think I can adapt even with someone that is maybe not the nicest on the phone. I can try to tone down everything and make sure that we have at least a professional conversation, even if they don't like me. Um, but back then, whatever happened at the end of the day, I had my salary coming. I was remunerated for my job and so on. You can argue if this is the right level of remuneration, whatever, depending on where you work. But at least you have a safe net, basically. With what I do right now is I need to be patient because all those things take time to get new customers and so on. And at the same time, right now, as a founder, I'm not paying myself, so I'm still living out of economies or like savings that I had on the side, and you see this thing going down. And that's why I was saying before that I've done a bit of freelancing for a year, so I could also finance a bit my flexibility for the past year and a bit more. But then you also have to be realist about where it's taking you and what is your plan. I always said to everyone that talked with me about freelancing and launching something, I think it's the most exciting stuff, but you have also to be able to say, okay, what is my personal runway? Because we always speak about the runway of companies, but you as a founder, you create something, you are not going to pay yourself for a long time. Do you have the runway to live basically, or to because surviving, I don't want to survive basically. Okay, I'm creating something, but if at some point I'm ending up at a point where it's basically survival mode, then for me it's a sign that it took me too long to decide, okay, that project doesn't go where it needs to go. And you need to put some kind of limit or KPIs on what you expect to achieve by a certain timeline. And if you are not able to, and it's happening too often, then there's maybe something to uncover. So it's patience, but it's also linked to the risk. And it's just like this thing is the most difficult because you have to stay calm and advance. And you have to handle also all the emotional stuff. I wouldn't say I'm more emotional, but it's just that when you have a win, it's basically 10 times whatever you have lived in your past experience. But when you have something bad, it's actually 20 times more difficult and eating you even more. Because suddenly you feel like, okay, we're not able to do anything, and you are basically bad at what you're doing. But it's a learning curve. But this one, I think, is the toughest that I've seen. Maybe there are other jobs, but this one is basically just, yeah, it's you with your co-founders and you are trying your best. There are days where it's hitting harder than what you could expect.
I mean, that sounds incredibly difficult to bootstrap a company, to look at your funds and say, okay, like you said, what's my runway? I mean, from what I've heard from a lot of people to start their companies, they often have a motto of fail fast because they have to know exactly when to say, okay, this is not working, we need to pivot. Or I think you've also probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably had some experiences where you push out an update to a product, you know, your product, you think it's great, but then clients are using it or they're misusing it, or you're like, why are you guys using it that way? What's your experience been like that where you've created a feature, you think it's amazing, and then clients just don't use it the way you expect them to use it?
I think it's just linked to the fact that because we, as co-founder, like founders of a company, we are so much into our product every day that we don't even realize the complexity that we create sometimes. It's just like for us, it seems simple, it seems natural to use it like this, but then when you put it in the hand of someone, they are just not, it's not the same basically. So, the really the best example I can take is that for a long time at the beginning of Smart Hole that we are creating, we wanted it to be a PLG solution where it's basically product-led growth. So it means that you onboard people on your platform without the need of human because everything is so smooth, everything is so easy to understand that they don't need you to onboard them. Um, but this doesn't work today, especially with AI, because in the end you are prompting a system. Prompting is not natural for a lot of people, even though I guess more and more people are prompting some kind of AI somewhere. Um, and you that didn't work basically. That's something that we realized from the get-go, and now we are much more involved in the onboarding because first we learn. It's also a super great source of feedback to see how those people are using it, and we try not to guide them too much, just to see, okay, how do you take it in your hands, and where do you go, what do you see, and usually you are always surprised. So I think that's why it's super important for anyone found like creating something like this at the beginning. You need to be in every single demo, every single uh, discussion where someone is going to use the platform. You need to look at it, uh, even not ask question, but just okay, show me what you would do. Where do you go? How does the experience look for you? And just understand what you thought was easy, which is basically not. So that happened to us. And that was a big learning, but I think now we are in a better place, and that's why we're onboarding more customers right now. But we'll need to go this way at some point and to learn from this experience and to find ways to, if not fully automate, find ways to make it super simple and much more digestible for a newcomer to come on the platform and understand where to go and what to do, what are the tools available to them. But it takes a lot of time. And of course, if we had 10 people in our team working, that will make a difference versus having three co-founders, one of them being fully dedicated to the technical stuff because he's the CTO, and the two other doing everything else. So of course you cannot prioritize everything the same every day. You have to change. You have maybe some firefighting to do, some new stuff coming in as a top prio, and then you have to handle that.
So you've kind of hinted at what the product is, but it would be a disservice if I don't actually ask you to tell me what does your product actually do? Because I mean, we've talked a lot of, but I mean, I think
Yeah.
people want to know if we're having this conversation, what is your product?
What we do is, for me, it has always been a frustration to look at how we train agents today and how we train support teams, in the sense that what I always tell is that when I started at Google, I went into 30 days of training. I don't remember, but it was most likely hundreds of slides that I've seen during those 30 days, hundreds of spreadsheets, self-learning, all those kind of things. I've spent hours looking at a senior agent doing their job, but I've only spent 5 minutes doing a role play, and that was the only time that I was actually put into potentially a simulation of what could be my job in the future. And the result of that was that my first call took me 2 hours to solve. Not because it was complex, not because it was a complex customer or something, but just because I didn't know how to handle that conversation. I didn't ask the right question. I didn't take ownership of the conversation. And the same issue 6 months later, I could basically solve in 5 minutes. And my view on that is just because we don't set up our agents the right way. We need to put them into a sandbox where they can make mistake. Making mistake is good, but they need to make it in an environment that is safe, where they will be coached right away. Because I think that's also the issue is with quality today. You make a mistake, you get a review, but the feedback loop is super long. You will have managers or trainers or quality reviewers that will come to you after multiple days, whatever, and they will tell you, okay, you could have done that, you could have, and it's always like this back and forth and taking a lot of time. And I think the feedback loop needs to be much more quick, I would say. So what we are doing is basically using AI to create virtual customers that will have multiple use cases, but the idea is to say, okay, those are the type of tickets or questions that our customers will send us, and we basically load those virtual customer into the environment, and they come and they will speak with your agents on those typical questions that you get, and they will train like this. And at the end of every single conversation, your agents, they get coached within 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how long the conversation is. But they get right away based on a scorecard that you can use for quality already. They will know what they did well and what they could improve, if they made a mistake on saying or providing an information that is not accurate based on knowledge bases or things like this. And we can make the training super customized and personalized through any company like this. So that's the core of what we do. We are using simulation to train people, but actually we can also recruit and hire people based on that. So our vision is to say, okay, you have a full performance engine that we're going to create, which is you test people when they are being hired to see if they have the right soft skills to be a great agent in your team. Once you hire them, you onboard them with our simulation, because then they will know, they will be prepared with what are the typical easy and complex question they will have to handle. And then once they are live, we keep looking at what they do with actual customer. And if we understand or if we see that there is a gap of knowledge or skills that we see coming, instead of only saying there is a gap, we actually create a new simulation, a new scenario that will help fill the gap. And all of this automatic, with the idea to also unload a lot the trainers, the leaders in customer support team, and to make sure that they can really focus on where they have the most impact, which is not all those operational stuff of reviewing manually, creating simulation, and all those kind of things.
I mean, honestly, that's nothing short of amazing. I'm gonna be honest. I see this filling two much needed gaps. One, I can't tell you how many times as a hiring manager we would interview someone, they'd be very polished in the interview, they nailed the interview, but then they wouldn't be great at the job. So to have a chance to kind of test them in the interview process to see if they'd actually be good in the job, I think would be great, because it gives hiring managers a sense, okay, can this person actually do the job? But then, as you know, and I think a lot of people in support know, when you go through training, you learn about 10 to 20% of the actual job and training, and then the rest you learn while you're doing the job. And if we could try to start to shift that balance where people are learning 50 or 60% of the knowledge even before they take their first call, I think that would be huge for all the clients out there also, because they would get a better quality of service also. So, I mean, it's amazing. The product you're creating, I think, is there's a definite need for it. Another question I have that I kind of thought about when you were talking about other things was, has there ever been a time where in a conversation with a client, you saw them misuse the product, and then you're like, oh, that's actually a pretty cool use case. We could probably put in the product later on.
Um, Misuse the product in a way, let me think. Um,
Like they used it where you're like, oh, you weren't supposed to do that, but that's kind of even cooler than what we were originally thinking.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's cooler, but we have seen things where some customers want to have really specific conversation happening and kind of scripted and things like this. So it's just about like making the whole discussion super customizable. And especially I'm thinking about voice right now, because technically at the beginning, we were only about inbound kind of simulations, and now we made it so that whatever happens, the scenario can actually replicate anything. So right now, depending on how we set up the thing, it can be inbound or outbound call. So if you have also support teams uh, needing to practice, okay, I have a callback to do, or I have a customer to call back, this is something they can practice. And same for the recruitment part. Now we actually also have a bot that is going to act as as a recruiter even. And the idea is not to replace fully a recruiter, but just to help filter out, okay, we have a few things that we want to test or to ask, which are basic stuff like the level of English or a level of a language or things like this. And we just have this recruiter that's going to come and ask for basic questions, maybe 5 minutes of 5, 10 minutes of discussion. And we basically get that, and then our customer, they can decide, okay, I'm gonna have a full-on interview or not with them. Um, so those are potential ones that are coming to my mind. Um, and then it's not misuse, but the one that I feel like is gonna have the most impact is we need to integrate even more with a lot of tools. Like we already have Zendesk and Intercom, but I think something that a lot of customer support leaders are looking is to reduce the number of screens and tools that their team have to use. And we are already actually enabling some of our customer to make those simulation happen directly inside the Zendesk. So technically, the training ticket is going to come as a standard ticket inside Zendesk. It will be assigned to your agent, and they can reply it the same way they will reply to an actual customer, and then it's fully transparent. And then that's where you can, in our mind, it was to be used where you make it super clear to your agent, okay, now it's a training session, but you also have people that decided to say, okay, I also want to have some kind of hidden experience sometimes where I don't directly say it's actually a training, but I just want to see with one simulation how my agents are actually doing. Um, so just a few example. We haven't seen like big misuse or big use cases outside of what we already had in our mind. But I think maybe something that is coming that we are looking a lot at is once we know, based on everything I've said that we want to do and so on, but once we have all of this working, basically we know what is really good customer support done by humans, and we feel like there is maybe it has been asked by a customer, but we feel like there is a way to use all those insights to actually make chatbots even more intelligent in what they do. Because right now, I feel that's my feeling. I don't know the latest of the latest, but in chatbots, for me, it has always been a bit of a black box when it comes to the quality of the answers. You have a lot of information when it comes to deflection, how many tickets have been answered, how quick, and all those kind of things. So really quantitative. But on the quality side, has always been a really black box for me, and it's really difficult to understand what is the percentage of really high quality answer that those bots provided. And I think our solution, because we will learn a lot of stuff in many different industries on what good support looks like done by human, there is most likely a play that we can have where we say, okay, we're going to use that as a way to inform how chatbots need to behave in a specific industry. Um, that's much more long term, something a bit even outside of what we were saying, but it's really related to it.
Well, that sounds amazing. We are coming up on time. Is there any kind of closing remarks you want to have before we end this?
Just going a bit outside of just the company and everything, but I think um, customer support is usually seen as maybe not the most exciting path, or I've seen on Reddit a lot of people complaining about the job and so on. And I just feel it's most of the time because they are not at the right place. I'm not judging them, but I just feel like I've had the most exciting 10 years that I've ever could imagine, I would say, before starting my career. And I feel like if you have the right skills and that you like and that you're patient and that you like helping people, that you are good at communication and so on, there is a lot of opportunities out there. It's difficult. The job market is difficult, but I'm sure there are exciting projects. And for example, on my side, just going back to my company, everyone, all the co-founders, we all had some kind of customer support background, and it makes us better at what we do because we have been in the front lines with those customers. So we are trying to use that every day to make ourselves better as founders and as a product also. And I think a lot of people that are currently working customer support should remember that and use that to their advantage for the next step. And it's fine to go outside customer support, but I'm sure you will have learned a lot about how customer behave and think, and you can reuse that. So just a little call to think also a bit outside of the box and how you can learn that precious knowledge that you have coming from customer, because I think most of the great companies are really, really focused on customers and they put them first. And that's where you, from my perspective, you see a big difference between companies that don't really care, or they say they care, but they don't actually, and companies that really do and will be much more efficient in their operation when it comes to support.
I think that's a great answer. And it kind of blends perfectly into the way I like to end each show by saying that customer smart isn't just a job, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
So, Thibaut, thank you again for being on this episode. I wish you only success in your company going forward, and I hope we can talk again in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Andre.
All right.
See ya.